think in terms of the style, what's your thinking about the style?
Well, actually, that is more I can open the space for a psych. And psych usually means that it gets to be this conversation between a lighting designer and a set designer. For my benefit, I have said, like, this is the end of my world, and then kind of dropped the ball in his lap and said, so what do you think we should do? Should we actually go with something more concrete? And that's actually like where our collaboration, like especially for these two shows, like Lights and Sets, where a lot of the collaboration, because of the end of the set, was really the beginning of the world for a lighting designer, as in you have to design this part.
And jumping off of that, yeah, it was a very interesting effect to create. It's trying to push as far towards realism as theatrical lighting can get with our inventory. But using 3 different systems, so a ground row of lights, a top row of lights, and then a system behind to project the sun and clouds and other things of those elements to try and create as much realism as possible. And then adding in, on top of that, our moving intelligent lighting fixtures to create the actual sunsets and movement of the sun.
Well, it worked.
Thank you.
The answer to a question why the actual clouds didn't move, that is an effect that the theater gets to be achieved by projection design and projector, and usually it tends to be more distracting than necessarily helping. It also, like in spaces like this, gets to fight with the lights a lot, because projectors don't like lights, lights don't like projectors, and ultimately when you have a huge site, you want to sacrifice one or the other. And on my behalf, I think that I'm really, really happy that Andrew has chosen to do the lighting option rather than.
Although we do have our 3 intelligent fixtures lighting the sky drop and oftentimes moving the light, particularly in the Seagull. It's very noticeable. It's only. Go ahead.
It's a lot more active in the Seagull. It's that first dusk to night transition. It's a lot more drawn out, a lot more dramatic, a much longer transition than the Arms and the Man. But yeah, I think theatrically, I think it was fairly successful. And I think it worked and collaborated very well with the set design to create the world and make it feel more expansive and more open and actually like there was a sky.
We actually had 2 of them because we built a new sky drop out of an old site that we can no longer use because we have a new fly system. So we actually were able to make a new piece of scenic background, and we use that as well in the interior, although you see a little less of it because it's such an intimate box set here. And we really do play, I think, with the rotation in theaters between intimacy and expansion, and a sense of distance and framing in terms of how the stories work. And thematically, I'll talk a little bit from the director's point of view. We were looking at how Arms and the Man is a play about fracturing a performance, right? Feeling like you're getting to know someone very well, and then really you're getting to know a myth, and that breaks, and then you see it inside of a whole new frame. And then with the Seagull, you're looking at something that's so consciously theatrical, and everyone's trying to be great actors and great writers and find their place. And ultimately we end up sort of in this trap of an intimate claustrophobic world in Chekhov's piece. So we also found that these pieces speak to the themes and structures and central arguments of Shaw's work and Chekhov's work, which ultimately tells you have a design that's starting to open up meaning as well. Other questions for our panelists? Thanks, Marietta.
So in shooting the season, did you already have in mind the challenges of different stages, or did you choose the shows and then kind of deal with those stage challenges after that, or like how did that process go about with the running the 2 shows together? Speak a little bit about that.
Well, very briefly, our season selection committee chose the shows and voted, and it was made up of, you got it?
It was the 4 faculty members, Chris Klein from psychology, who was an invited guest, and Doug Anderson, who was our interim chair for 2 years, who, as well as Sharon Romano and Jim Boyd were also, and Andrew, I think, was also on the committee that helped vote from the students' point of view as far as getting their vote across.
So the idea of doing the repertory came from the faculty. Then there were 3 pairings, so 6 shows total that we looked at, and then these were the plays selected, and then we began the design process. We really didn't know that that Anna would be our guest artist and how the student design panel would line up until the fall. And some of the student designers weren't sort of cast in their roles as designers until around Halloween, and some, like Andrew Nabowski, were starting almost as soon as the plays were picked and getting his feet anchored in there as part of a capstone. So that should give you some background. Thanks for the assist.
Yeah.
My mind just went.
But I think to sort of answer your question, I don't think when we picked the shows, there was not this intention of the 2 stages. I think we were always conscious of how we were going to use the space, using it differently than we normally do. But I don't think it was concretely decided when we picked the shows that that was going to be how it was going to go until Anna came and sort of sat down with all of us and sort of, I remember one day we were in here all sort of like talking and running back and forth and being like, what if this is here? And what if, you know, and so there was, that didn't really come about until Anna came to visit and we had Anna in place. And I don't think anyone wanted to solidify that before Anna came, right? I think they wanted her to be a part of that process as far as making this an interesting experience for all of us. So.
We did hope that the choice to do repertory and to use a student design team as well as faculty design, that we would hope that this would provoke us, right, and move us out of any sort of previous comfort zone, right? I don't think we knew the scope at which it would provoke and challenge us, but I think the hope was there that it would push us to feel like we were doing something different, which we try to give to the students and also to ourselves in terms of modeling lifelong learning.
Well, let's embarrass Anna for the students. What was it like working with Anna?
Fantastic.
What did you learn?
I learned a lot about, color usage and things like that. How the sets sort of have these different color palettes. And it was really interesting to sort of learn about the effects that colors have and the way that a set is built and the necessary things that need to be used to put up a set that works and it also looks good. Very good.
I never worked on an exterior set before, so that was really an interesting experience, being able to work on both kind of semi-exterior and, part of like the exterior of a house for Arms of the Man, and then completely exterior for the Seagull. So that was really interesting, getting to work with like the AstroTurf and the kind of problem-solving kind of greenery and, all of that out there. So that was probably one of the most interesting things that I was picking up, along with, just learning off you throughout the entire experience. So.
As props designer for Arms of the Man, Anna and I worked a lot together to help kind of establish the world and set decorations and stuff. So the first act of Arms of the Man, there were a lot of little details that Anna really helped me to create. And so she really taught me the importance of how a props design and a set design and collaboration can establish the world of the play. And so we set up in this very romantic world, and I think what we really kind of arrived at helped facilitate the storytelling and the message of the play. It's all gone now. Except they didn't take down the, whoops, well, they did down.
Yeah, the icon's still
The
there.
icon is still on the wall. But, so she helped teach me about how to do storytelling and help communicate the meaning through all these little details that people aren't necessarily going to specifically take in, but understand the tone of, at least. Because they're not going to go through and look at all the little things that create the world, but if it's not there, it feels wrong, it feels missing. And so, like now, you wouldn't get the same message with like blank walls and blank tables and blank surfaces as if we fill it out, and she really helped me and pushed me to really fill the space. And that's my best.
Her close attention to detail was extraordinarily useful as a props designer, and it just like she kind of like helped guide and keep pushing to what the overall vision was, which was extremely useful for me because I was completely lost. I had no idea I've never done props before, so this was my first rodeo, and she was just like right there with me on it, helping me get it done, which is great.
And we'll be hearing much more about Skylar's process in goal creation, goal reconnaissance, as well as the very large task that was propping the Seagull when Skylar defends her capstone next week. That'll be next Saturday night, right?
Yes, yes.
Because there's going to be a lot of props talking with it.
I know, fun.
I'm looking forward to it. Other responses?
Well, one of the things that was interesting for me is this is my first time really delving into realism and naturalism, which, for one, the plants, the tree all being there as opposed to having to try and imply them being there with lights was interesting and a bit of a challenge, but it also worked out to the better. And it was really interesting to see how all of those elements that I've never really worked with really played into the lighting design and the set world at the same time. And all of her creative solutions to those, the astroturf, the grass weed breeds that created a brown row which hid all my bottom lights. And I think it was very effective.
In a positive way, hit. Like, you're not there. They're not supposed to be there.
I guess for sound, our worlds didn't cross very much. There were 2 sets, so we had to place speakers on both sets. We had a small inventory, so that caused problems, I guess. But we worked it out. It was just one there, and then there, up there. So give us more speakers.
That brings up something. I really, all the years that I've been doing theater productions here, this is one of the few that actually had incidental music. I never really remember experiencing that before in one of these productions. As a matter of fact, I rarely, except to be able to live ensemble, really it's done in a theater production. Period. As the dialogue is going on, you're hearing this incidental music, and I was impressed with it. I was impressed with how it was balanced, and I liked that.
Was that something that you came up with?
That's something that Andy, the director, actually pushed for. I sort of saw that I was going to do a straight play, and so I wasn't going to need to before music and after music. But Andy was really wanting music throughout the whole show. So once I got signed on to the project, I realized that my job was actually a lot bigger than just making sound effects like I did for other shows I've sound designed. But luckily, he has a former teacher who also did Arms and the Man, who actually gave me a lot of the music. But then I didn't know where the music fell into the show, and that got switched around a lot. But Andy has professionally sound designed before, so he helped me a lot with it. Yes, we just sort of found the tone of some scenes and decided if music would work or not, sort of like how in movies there's music all the time. And that's sort of the process that happened.
Yeah, as here I've been to many of the plays over the many of the years, and just to see the theater department grow in everything. I mean, all the way back to probably one of the first ones I remember seeing here was Quack. Very simple, not much. It was, great actors and whatever, but very little set anything. And then to come to, what was the one in the musical?
Forum?
No, even the one, there was no.
Quilters?
Yeah, well, the quilting one, obviously, that was probably one of the most interesting use of it in around there, just the detail there. But it's just the detail is grown so much in 10 years. That was the thing, is I was sitting here tonight going, oh my gosh, look at the detail. It's like the little flames flickering in the fire. I caught that, I'm like, okay. They would never have thought of that before, and the candle, and like you said about,
imagine it, it's now there. So, you know, I think you've all done an excellent job. I mean, we just don't know, we enjoy coming, but just to see everything grow every year, something better. And, you know, as sad as I am that you're not allowed to be back there anymore, it'll be interesting to see how the plays grow with this new configuration.
I think as educators and, you know, practitioners, we try to do as many new things as possible, from doing a musical to a rap to a to a studio piece. And we always try to teach our students sort of the proper way to do things, and sort of new technologies. You know, the addition of the moving lights, how we were able to do that sunset. You know, that was not a thought a year and a half, even a year ago. We got those sort of midway through last year. So even those little things that we get that we can introduce our students to, who can then be like, wow, I've got 3 moving lights, you know, so the next time they get 5 moving lights, they sort of know what to do with them. But, you know, I think all those additions that we get through the gifts that we get, and we can pass those on, and our students get to learn so much more about our craft and what we do and what we can do. And surprisingly, what we do with such a little amount of money, I'm surprised. Like when Anna was talking about her design at one point, I was like, does she really know how much money she has? I know she's going to be able to do that, you know? But I mean, we somehow have managed to do it show after show, and it surprises me every time. But you know, our students are willing to put in the extra work, and they're willing to learn the right way to do things, and they're, you know, trained by people who are, you know, David's really good on safety and being professional and putting them in a safe environment. So I think that we always keep learning new things, and I think that's part of what we strive for in this department, is to learn new things, to keep developing our technique, and to get better at it as we do it, and hopefully we can continue to do that. So.
And we really have been avoiding realism, right, for the last few years in terms of our programming, to buy us some time, to allow us to curate our stock, to care for the things we have, to clean them and find out what we have, to cull and keep what the best is. And as we've done that, we've discovered tapestries and carpeting and where we are strong and where we are weak, and that helps choose in play selection. It also helps in executing design. I know there was one day when I was getting settled in, and I was like, let me show you all the things I found in the last year that I think could work in this piece. And then we just sort of built sort of a rat's nest of exciting things that could become Eastern European. And we have a very nice stock. Some of our stock came from the castle, the family that had lived in the castle and donated a lot of their material to us in the 70s, which we should, I mean, it's a shocking amount of Victorian era costuming and also household goods, which is lovely. And I just found that out when we were doing Women in Black research. So like theater helps theater understand itself, and you know, maintaining those items and knowing that they're there and putting them to use. This set of productions has helped us build new stock, whether we're talking flats and door units, exterior materials, and also helped us really curate and refine some of our existing stock. It got stripped down, it got refinished. We put an investment of time in, and it'll keep paying us back.
Yeah,
as well.
I often see stuff rotate around,
Right.
but still, it's, you know, the simplicity, I like, you know, when you don't have anything and you guys create out of nothing, but it's also nice to see that you have the opportunity to learn how to construct at this level too. So, yeah, very good job.
Thank you. I love hearing things like that. That's good.
This is a really small question, but where do you keep the stock? Is it here?
That's a constant
The furniture stock is actually in the behind the gathering place, so we sort of have to either get a truck or walk over there, and sort of sometimes you'll see theater students carrying like a rug or a lamp or a chair, right, from here to there.
If
So
no one's chasing them, it's all good.
it's just a truck. Sometimes you have to like sneak in there. But yeah, so we keep a lot of stuff at what we call IGA, and then the costume stock is in sort of 2 locations upstairs. We have sort of a hanging storage area, which is all separated into periods and categories and things. And then we have a box storage inside the costume shop that allows us to fold things up and save a lot of room, and so we put things into boxes and
And
into.
it's above the flex page.
Yes, yes. And then props is back behind the stage here. There's a loft up on top that we keep all of the props stored into. So.
But because of a lot of the facilities overhaul we've been doing, we've been really culling, and we now have a digital archive of what we have in every area but costumes, which is hugely helpful and very rare for a department our size, and a part of our work study project. Now we're archiving, we're making digital all of our program archives, right? All of our production memorabilia, our photographs, our press clippings, and hopefully those will be searchable for alumni soon as well, because that's part of the stock that we house.
And
A stock of
Andrew
memories.
is actually making all of the photos available from past productions and current productions so that you can sort of find pictures on the internet through a Flickr account. So everything but costumes. So.
Well, it's not like we've been short-shifted today.
Can I-
All the lights are above you, so.
Oh, yes. So long as the electric box is up and out.
The panel members or Ann? Another question?
The only thing that I miss is and I don't know if it's a cost thing, we used to do the pictures of all the actors, and there used to be a display out there, and I know you got rid of the cases and that's fine, but is there any thought of bringing that sort of, that type of advertising back to that area? So you can kind of go out and look at the students, because, we usually keep track of the students and, seeing their freshman year and how they grow through their senior, fifth year, however it works.
Well, we are only 4 plus Dorothy, and we are fierce. We are fierce 4.5. I would go against any other 4.5 out there making theater, plus our great students. We do hope that the center arch that used to be our box office window might become a display area. We need to make a small investment in some new display areas. We're building a new box office piece that will be able to move around the lobby and hopefully be more inviting and usable. Those things take time, and we needed to dismantle a culture where biography pieces in a program are becoming jokey or unprofessional. We're moving into a phase where all the students are now going through an audition and professional prep class where they're having their headshots taken by a professional. Happens to be an alumni of the arts department here, who's taken a lot of theater photography. So we're working on that and better archival photography. So we're working in that direction, and my hope is to get that together, but right now we're still just trying to get the shows up. And some of those other activities. Until we have a true pedagogical track in advertising, PR, and audience relations, which we're hoping will come. But our Fierce 4.5 is focused on how you're feeling here. We needed to work on that, and then that's our next phase. Once this is stable, I think we'll move into those sort of interactive moments. But panels like this help with that.
I think this is my 4th one that we sat in, so.
Great.
Enjoy it.
Panelists, student members, any other learning moments you'd like to share or insights or discoveries? What this project has meant to you?
I gotta say, old age makeup is an interesting thing to put on and take off. It takes a while. But it's interesting, and it's a good thing that I learned about it. But yeah, and this is a fun process overall.
It's definitely been an interesting process for me because I've had so many hats on throughout the entire process. Primarily in Seagull, but I've also had a large hand in the scenic aspects for Arms of the Man. And just overall, just like all of the work that it takes, and I've always been one to, kind of strive to be the best that I can be and go above and beyond that. And it's been a very interesting process, and I'm really glad that we did a laboratory because I've never had that kind of experience anywhere before. And I feel that that's going to be very useful when I do get out of here and, graduate next year. And just being able to go into the world and be able to describe what I've kind of been able to experience through my 4 years here, after I graduate next year. So.
me because I'm very sort of mathematical when it comes to like how much money I spend on it per costume and per character, and these shows are so different in a lot of ways. I mean, one is like twice as big as the other, and so it's just been really interesting for me to sort of try to balance like my time between two shows, because I'll get in the costume shop and I'll be like, oh, I'm just fixing this, I'm gonna build this, right? But like then I realize I've spent like 3 weeks on one show and I haven't spent anything on another, and you know, like monetary wise, I didn't want to short one show over another show. So, you know, there were some big investments that came into Arms of the Man, like boots and uniform hats and things like that, that were things we needed for those specific outfits that were sort of bigger purchases. And then there was like lots of little money that was being thrown at Seagull and sort of being, you know, like hats and, you know, accessories and ascots and, you know, just all the little things that weren't in the shop at that time. So it was definitely a harder process for me to sort of focus on two shows at the same time and try to keep them separate in my mind, because sometimes I would get very confused, and Beth, my assistant, was really great at doing all of my paperwork and sort of piece list after. I'd be like, okay, fix it again, right? So she would like always be on the computer, always be up at the rack trying to like go through everything. And we also had rehearsal pieces, so not on top of everything we built for the show, or we were building for the show, we had rehearsal pieces for almost every character on stage, you know, whether it was a rehearsal nightgown or rehearsal skirts, rehearsal shoes, rehearsal jackets. So like the amount of clothes just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger until finally I was like going out of my mind, and I was like, we have to get all the rehearsal stuff off of the rack. But so it was just a hard thing to sort of keep my mind around two shows at the same time, and figuring out what is what and the coloring of each character. And you know, obviously Arms of the Man got sort of very red, white, and black, which sort of happened by accident. And then sort of the organic feeling of the Seagull that sort of became this sort of more naturalistic approach, sort of more natural colors, with a few pops of color here and there. So it was definitely a harder process for me to sort of focus on two shows and give energy to both and not feel like I was shorting one over the other. And Annie kept telling me, just whatever's easiest for you. And then I'd have Jeff would be like, let's think about the trim color. So I had very directors too. And I love working with both of them. I'm not criticizing Jeff, because Jeff really made me think about the details of things, right? I was kind of like, oh, it looks great, Jeff. And he'd be like, what if we put a pink trim on there? What do you think that would make it look a little bit better? And then he'd be right, and I'd be like, okay, let's do it. So that was harder for me, I think, is trying to work with two different directors and the amount of time.
And I'm seeing a lot of head nods down the row in terms of that really being a stretch here educationally, and there's been a lot of time and energy dedicated for the students playing multiple roles, whether acting and then moving into tech design. And that's the heart of our philosophy as a department. And we really wanted to create an experience that would push and stretch out, and it did, but it also made sure that students were arriving at an addition to the resume in the performance area, or the directing management area, and also in the backstage design tech world, so that they made sure it was an ongoing conversation between and among themselves and inside themselves. Okay.
I kind of gained a new appreciation for having an assistant designer, because since I was both the stage manager and assistant director for Arms and the Man, poor Tim kind of got stuck doing a giant chunk of the sound design all on his own, where Sharon had some assistants, with TJ, who was with her a good portion of the time, and they worked together really well. And anyway, right back on track. So when my duties for stage managing and assistant directing started trailing off at the end to where I had a little bit more time to go and help Tim, there were a couple of days where he was just like, I can't find this no matter where I look, just good luck. It's something we need and it's important, but I can't do it anymore. And it's really hard staring at a computer screen and listening for a really long period of time. Like, you would think that would not be too difficult because we spend so much of our day on a computer, but it was really difficult, like just staring at the screen and
and researching and looking and listening, and there were a couple of points in time where we were just like Jeff would want something done for his design, and we're like, we're sorry, we tried, we can't give it to you. And then
Needs more trim.
And then it was like, I'm sorry, Jeff, I'm sorry, I can't, it's not gonna work out. We're gonna have to, you're gonna have to say, okay, I don't like this part, but we're gonna hear it anyway, and there's gonna be music, or you're gonna have the end of a scene change in silence. And I was finally just like, I'll look again, I'll listen again, I'll do it one more time. And we actually ended up finding a cut that worked really well. And I think having an extra set of ears in the end was really, really great. And I kind of got this cut together, and I was like, there's this really awful blip, and I don't know how to get rid of it. And then Tim was like, "Bert, done." And it sounded amazing, and we're like, hey, teamwork. So it was really nice to get to do, have collaboration on a design with somebody, and get to learn something where it's I kept trying to cut it and it wasn't working, and together we ended up getting some stuff accomplished. It was really nice.
Yeah, and being a mass media major, it's been rather interesting doing sound design. I used to be able to put up the video and play it back over and over again until it matches right up. And being in theater, it's never identical every single time. And nothing matches up exactly every single time. So it's just
There's a lot of joy in that silent scream. You can't hear it.
One thing that I definitely learned, this being the first time my experience to work with students and teach a class, so get to know them as a student, is that, this level lady here, for instance, being someone who painted most of the stuff on a set with rest of the crew, but paint likes to be left alone, so we needed to sneak behind when Andrew's not doing the lights or when the scenery is not doing their work. So nights are really good for a paint calls. But I've learned really fast that when Jeff and me start working on something, it becomes a really big problem of trying to chase this cat out of the theater, because we're like, it's 4 a.m. and you have classes tomorrow. And she's like, so do you. And we're like, the same aspect. You really need to go home. But that was my experience. I was like, oh, so sometimes you have to let go because she's not gonna let go. She's just gonna, okay. So I learned a lot actually throughout this whole experience from these students here, and from Jeff, and from Andy, and from David. And I think that part of that one. Yeah, and from Renee. Well, we do teach together, so I did learn a lot from you. But it was really a great experience, but mostly my background being so specialized in specific areas, here being with students that are liberal arts and seeing them having their hands in everything, and how much drive and how much energy they put in everything, even when you know that it's not a scenic designer that's working next to you, but it's a person that's equally or twice as excited to see that project get to the point of perfection and done and completion. It was an amazing experience, really.
And I think, just to have a wrap-up comment jumping off of Anna's, and thank you for taking us to a concluding thought, but having Anna here helped us see who we are and what we have, and her responses to the students and their commitment, right, really was remarkable every day. She said, do you know how lucky you are with these students? And I was like, it's nice to be reminded. And we have quite a group, and then to work in sort of the trenches together for the last 7 weeks and build this as a full team, and everyone being equal and working just as hard. There's no I'm working harder than you game happening, which was also very nice to see amongst the students and the faculty. And I think we're very proud of where we've come to as a team, majors, non-majors, freshmen to senior. It's really been an all-skate, as I've called it sometimes, and a really remarkable set of products. Thank you for joining us for this discussion. Yes, repertory team. Thanks, Gumbo. I appreciate it. We got it on tape. Would you move the wagons, please? Wrap company safely and with more hands making legwork, et cetera, et cetera.